You know, sometimes you wake up and you just know it's going to be a fun show. Today's not one of those days. In any event, good morning, everybody. Great to have you for another edition of the Carton Show. That guy right there is David Jacoby, everybody.
Yes, I am.
My main man, Pots and Pans. We're in a little family squabble right now, but that's Craig Jennings, Super Bowl champion, and Green Bay Packer Hall of Famer. Notice I'm not even looking at him because his face disgusts me right now. And my main man right here, Mr. Willie Colon.
Thank you.
Super Bowl champion.
Hey.
You know, yesterday was a really interesting day because I took a little break from the sports world, put on a little Fox News to catch up on what's going on, you know, with Robert Hur and all the interesting stuff going on with the president and hiding materials and all that stuff, right? And then all of a sudden I see a breaking news story, and I'm like, yeah, breaking news story, politics. Give me Bill Hemmer. What do we got going on? And it turns out that my quarterback is not only going to be the comeback player of the year and the MVP and the Super Bowl champion, but he's also going to be the vice president of the United States of America. And if there was ever such a thing that was on brand for the New York Jets, it's the fact that my starting quarterback is being considered by Robert Kennedy Jr., an independent candidate for the office of President of the United States of America, as one of two finalists to be his vice presidential running mate. The other is Jesse the Body Ventura. I don't think he's going to win the election, but the mere fact that there's the possibility that the AFC Championship game could be played and Aaron Rodgers would have to bow out of the game because he's got his hand on a Bible being installed as the new vice president is awesome because it's so Jet-like.
Yeah, I don't know what to take. When I saw this, I didn't know what to think. I was just like, the Jets keep on putting distractions in front of them. Now, I don't know how much.
This ain't the Jets' fault. This is an Aaron Rodgers
But he had
thing.
to agree to some part of it, right? Or
no, I think the Jets found out when we found out when Kennedy announced it yesterday. Do you think the Jets, Robert Saleh, Joe Douglas, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Woody Johnson were like, I knew that was coming? Or do you think like the rest of us, they were like, what the F is going on with my quarterback?
You absolutely gotta love it. You do. I mean, number one, I will say this. What an honor. It is an honor if you're just in that lane.
Sure.
But boy, man. I mean, some people want everybody to abide by rules that they don't want to abide by, and he kind of fits that lane.
Do as I say, not as I do, kind of thing.
It's when you read about it, it's one thing if RK Jr. was in a press conference and was like, hey, I haven't decided yet, but I'm looking at some prominent figures and just mention his name. But they've been going back and forth. Like he's like engaging in this as a real possibility.
And that's the scary thing if you're a Jet fan, because we have bought into the notion that he's our savior, and he said he wanted to play maybe 2, 3, or 4 years. That was only a couple weeks ago when it looked like he wanted to continue his NFL career. But now he's taking, apparently, the opportunity seriously. And as far as I know, you can't do both. But I might be wrong.
I don't know.
Anyhow, a little bit later on in the show, I'll let you hear a voicemail I got from fake Aaron Rodgers on my phone yesterday, and he'll walk us through exactly what he's thinking in regards to football versus politics. One other quick thing that we'll get to today, and I feel for you. I don't know why I feel for you, but if you're a Dallas Cowboy fan, I feel for you.
It's tough.
Like, it's one thing to not sign anybody when every other team has signed somebody. And then it's another thing when you do sign somebody and he's a long snapper.
Retain the long snapper.
Right, resign. Resign.
It's wild, man.
You're a long snapper.
All in.
But it's an entirely different thing when you announce that the Zach Moss deal and the Derrick Henry deal, two guys that did sign in the last 36 hours, that the money they got was, quote unquote, too rich for your blood.
Which is wild.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Excuse me? Excuse me? Now, I don't know about you guys, but it was not that long ago that the owner of the Cowboys said, quote unquote, all in. You got a long snapper resign?
Hey.
Does that seem like all into you?
No, baby steps though, right?
We got much more on the Dallas Cowboys situation. We got much more on all the movements that took place in the last 24 hours. We've got a solution, by the way, for the Justin Jefferson situation in Minnesota. Ooh. I've solved that problem for everybody. Oh. And the Ravens getting Derrick Henry have a lot of people thinking they are the new team to beat, but they're not. After this. So yesterday on the show, and a lot of people were talking about how Derrick Henry made sense for Dallas. Me and Greg Jennings told you no, he makes a lot of sense for the Baltimore Ravens based on their style of offense and how good they are last year at running the football. Obviously having Lamar Jackson back there as well, he's a big part of the rushing attack as well. But Derrick Henry does go to Baltimore, 2-year deal, $20 million overall, 9 of it guaranteed for the 30-year-old, I think, first ballot Hall of Fame running back when it's all said and done. So there's people out there now asking the question that I'm sure Jacoby would ask me if he were setting me up on this, which is, does that make the Baltimore Ravens, the team most likely now to upset the Kansas City Chiefs in their quest for a three-peat? So allow me to answer that question, Jacoby. The answer is no. It does not. Because they had the best rushing offense in football last year, and even if they have it again this year, that's no different than last year. But there is a team, not named the Baltimore Ravens, that I do think is an existential threat to the Kansas City Chiefs and their run for a three-peat. Also a threat to the Baltimore Ravens repeating as division champions and the #1 seed. And I don't think it's close.
Oh, no.
I think based on the first 2 days of this legal tampering period in the NFL, while I love Derrick Henry going to Baltimore because you solidify he's the back as opposed to 2 or 3 different guys, being the ball carrier for the Baltimore Ravens, I think it's pretty obvious and pretty clear. The team most likely to be the #1 seed, the team most likely to upset Kansas City in their attempt for a three-peat, dare I say it, are the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Here we go. There we go.
Because somewhat quietly yesterday, your Pittsburgh Steelers added a guy named Patrick Queen.
Woo! He's a dog.
And I'm saying to myself, I'm wondering, Greg Jennings, for all the nonsense that we lived through here in New York with Saquon Barkley going to a hated rival, which pissed off Giants fans. Like, it's one thing to leave me, but don't leave me for her, right?
Sure.
Or him. The reality is that Patrick Queen did it the same exact way. He wasn't renewed in Baltimore, and rather than go somewhere else, he's taking his talents to a division rival, and that defense was already pretty good.
Yeah, so the only thing that I would say, and I disagree with you on this.
Fair enough.
But you just talked about the Baltimore Ravens, and they were great at running the ball last year, and they added Derrick Henry, so you would think that they would be better. The Pittsburgh Steelers was great defensively. They added Patrick Queen. They're going to be great again defensively. But offensively, what?
The little guy right there. Right there.
What do you mean what?
Russell Wilson.
Like I said, offensively.
And they still going to go to the draft and get multiple pieces.
I mean, they have to because you just traded away Deontay Johnson.
That's right.
You still got Pat Fairmouth. You still got Jalen Warren. You still got Najee Harris. And the bottom line, you have Russell Wilson, a competent veteran quarterback. The issue to what Craig is making is right now, the Baltimore Ravens really regressed in this position. Right now, because you let go of Patrick Queen, who once he kicked over to the weak side linebacker position, is pretty much your bell cow getting to the football. Now he's gone. Geno Stone, gone. Now you talking about Matt, you had to sign Madubuike. Big time move. I'm happy for him. Overall, man, nothing has changed for the Baltimore Ravens. If anything, from the defensive side, they took a hit because you lost. Remember what Patrick Queen going into that San Francisco game, how he was talking and how he looked in that game and after that game. He was the face mask for that defense. You don't have that anymore. So now you're talking about a division that is clearly aware of who the Baltimore Ravens are and no longer afraid because of what the Kansas City was able to do last year. So now the division's up for grabs because of Russell Wilson in addition to Patrick Queen.
Yeah, look, and I'm not telling you that it's going to be easy, but the question was, does Baltimore come back as favorites again to be the #1 seed solely because they added Henry? And I don't know that it does because, like you said,
I'm in lockstep.
Okay,
here.
yeah, and look, they're obviously a very good team. It'd be a shock for them not to be in the postseason, and then we can all roll the dice on who advances. But I can't sleep on what Pittsburgh has done. Because they made the playoffs last year at 10-7. They got better at quarterback. How much better? We're going to find out what Russell Wilson's got. They're already really good defense. Got even better now by adding Patrick Queen. They get rid of a malcontent in Deontay Johnson, who obviously wasn't respectful of Mike Tomlin and the locker room. We lived through that all last year. Yep. And I'm trying to figure out what Pittsburgh doesn't do well.
You're not making any sense, and let me explain why.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a gap, a huge gap between the Steelers and the Ravens last year, okay? And in the last 48 hours, the gap has closed, but there's still a huge gap. There's a position on the football field.
What gap? The Steelers beat the Ravens twice. And sure, Lamar Jackson didn't play the last game, but he beat the Ravens.
You keep saying that.
They did.
That's my guy.
So how can you say there's a gap when you beat the team that supposedly has the game, a huge gap over you twice in the season?
What you're doing is adorable for like debate class.
My point is,
but you watched all the games I watched. The Ravens ran through the 49ers. They ran through the Dolphins. They ran through every team in front of them until the playoffs.
If you beat the Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson and without Lamar Jackson, where's the gap? Because defensively, they were healthy both times.
Okay, there's 15 other regular season games that both teams played.
They beat the Bengals, Browns, Ravens twice.
I'm not saying that's not true. What I'm saying is when you watch the Steelers play football last year and you watch the Ravens play football last year, there was a huge gap, and you can't deny that. Okay?
I'm sorry.
One team has the MVP at quarterback.
I'm sorry.
The other team has Russell Wilson.
I'm sorry. Who won the Super Bowl? Yeah, not the Ravens.
The Chiefs.
Yeah, not the Bills.
Because they wouldn't run the ball, and now they have Derrick Henry, and they're going to run the ball.
And you know the team that beat the Ravens in the AFC Championship? The Chiefs.
Which team was at home? Which team was favored?
Much more of this debate coming up, I'm sure, in the days, weeks, and months ahead as we get ready for the 2024 season.
I'm upset now, Willie.
And
I
typically don't like to pick sides. But I'm with my guy right here.
Here we go.
Steelers? Here we go.
There we go. Let's get this fired up.
Meanwhile, speaking about that division, yesterday the Cleveland Browns made it official that Joe Flacco is not coming back, and instead they signed Jameis Winston, all right, to be their backup quarterback, meaning Joe Flacco is exactly where he was for September and October of last year. And once again, for those of you that might be new to the show or just checking us out, I'm right a lot. You may remember the conversation Big Willie and I had just a few days ago about the prospects of Joe Flacco returning to Cleveland. Why don't we step back into the Carton Show time machine and see how that conversation went, Greg?
There you go. You're not doing it.
It's funny to me that Joe Flacco thinks somebody wants him to play football next year. He's not going to be a Cleveland Brown.
Why?
And that's a lock. Because Deshaun Watson don't want the pressure of that guy behind him. Oh, so interesting how the kid got another one right. Joe Flacco's not only not in the league right now, Joe Flacco is not going back to the Cleveland Browns. And look, it doesn't matter. No, Jameis Winston's not very good either. And that franchise's offense is going to rest on the shoulder of Deshaun Watson, whether or not he finds, the old Deshaun Watson from the Houston Texans days. And do remember this. They averaged about 26 points a game in the 5 games he legitimately played start to finish, and they were 4-1 in those games. So if you're a Cleveland Brown fan, you're hoping kind of against hope that he develops even a greater relationship with the skill position players on that team and can build off that 4-1 start.
Absolutely. And if for me, I don't mind this backup because he can provide you the same thing Joe Flacco did, a lot of touchdowns and a lot of interceptions. I mean, you feel me? So I mean, you are banking on Deshaun Watson to develop the relationship with his skilled guys and then take the next step. So that's the focus.
A little bit later on in the show, Greg and I will revisit the argument that created a real huff on social media yesterday in regards to Justin Fields becoming a wide receiver. That'll be a little bit later on in the program today, but it's real, and we haven't spoken since because he was offensive and took personal shots at me yesterday. But before we get to that, we got first and football, and we have one of the strangest videos regarding a professional athlete that maybe I've ever seen.
It was awesome.
And we'll let you see that video next on FS1. So remember Aroldis Chapman won a World Series with the Chicago Cubs, played for the New York Yankees, threw about 104 miles per hour, went to the Texas Rangers. He's getting ready for another season of Major League Baseball. And I guess he was hanging out with his mom in between practices and training sessions. and put out a little Instagram story yesterday. Yeah. I'm sorry.
It's really the title for me.
Yeah.
Cuban Missile Crisis. That's like.
So yeah, that's his mom's right there.
Cuban nipple crisis.
Yeah. So right there, watch him steal second. Boom. Right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Greg Judge, why don't you take that one? Greg Judge, why don't you take that one, Greg?
Nope.
That's a very, very close family.
Yeah.
I think that's what. I'm not sure if she can't move or if she's there against her will, but that's a full handful of mom's breast in his hand, is what that is.
There's no reason. You get caught fluffing the pillows. You don't put it on IG.
Now, to be fair, the first naked boobs I saw were my mom's also. But I never fondled her in that manner like Geraldus is doing. And she doesn't seem to mind it.
Yeah, usually there's a no-fly zone around these parts.
She's like, get your hand off me, son. Go to the other breast.
Right.
Anyway, that's Geraldus Chapman. He does throw the ball very hard.
Yeah.
Cuban nipple crisis.
Yeah. From that, let's go to Jacoby.
Don't
And
run
first
from
in football, go ahead.
Think we should
Jacoby.
move on, or?
Yes.
You guys good?
Yeah.
All right, move on to football. And it is some news about the Steelers. They're still at it after adding Russell Wilson. They just added Patrick Queen to shore up the defense. They also added Dante Jackson in a trade for Deontay Johnson. Craig, what are realistic expectations for the Steelers?
The Super Bowl. I said that when you asked me on Monday when they got Russell Wilson.
What are you talking about?
I think Pittsburgh defensively.
Sucks.
By the way, I know Jackson. It may not be a household name. Stud cornerback, by the way.
Strong.
So now you've got two with Joey Porter Jr. of course, and Jackson on the other side. You've got two legitimate stud cornerbacks, and that defense was already very, very good, of course, with Watt being the best player on that defense. Now you had Patrick Queen, who I love. He was my favorite available linebacker in this season's free agent market. And the fact that he goes from Baltimore to a division rival is a very big deal. It's weird. Like, I compared it, in a way to Saquon leaving the Giants to go to Dallas because you're going from one team to a division rival. But Patrick Queen's better at what he does than what Saquon Barkley does at running back, just statistically.
Sure.
This is a badass defense that's going to be right there nip and tuck with the Cleveland Browns defense for one of the best, if not the best, defense in the AFC. I think it's fantastic what the Pittsburgh Steelers have done. Now, to be fair, Deontay Johnson, who they traded to the Carolina Panthers, is a legitimate threat. A huge, deep threat, obviously. But what we learned last year is that he was never going to buy in to the discipline or the ways of Mike Tomlin or the Pittsburgh Steelers. So you get rid of a quote-unquote malcontent, but a very talented player. In return, you get a very talented player on the other side of the field. And now the question is, how do you replace his numbers on offense, which is a fair concern. But, man, I love what the Steelers have done this offseason. You get a credible, competent, veteran quarterback with something to prove and a chip on his shoulder, which is the best way to get a veteran player, in my opinion, in Russell Wilson. You've improved an already very good defense, and I don't think the gap's all that big anymore in that division.
Yeah, so there's a style and a brand of football that you guys play in that AFC North, and Mike Tomlin understands this. When you think about the Pittsburgh Steelers and what they got away from, it was what they do best: play defense and run the football.
Sure.
So naturally, they immediately on paper right now, they have definitely gotten better. My questions and concerns, and yes, Super Bowl is real for them.
No.
Sure. I don't believe that, but for them, it is real. Russell Wilson, can he get it done? It is going to be, and I understand your stance of getting back to probably running the ball and featuring who you are and who you've once been. Russell Wilson still can't do what he once did. In Seattle, when he thrived, he was an off-script quarterback. He was able to use his legs. Now, at this stage, in this junction in his career, that is no longer a part of who he is, where he thrives. I don't know if he can play on script, in timing, and still have the success that you need him to have for this team to really get over the hump and win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think his workload won't be asked to be that much. Right now, the face of this franchise will forever be the defense. You talked about the run game. But right now, the fact that you guys also got to understand, like, Omar Khan, the GM, the current GM for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who they now call the con artist, he's going to restructure Cameron Hayward's deal with $22 million. He's going to restructure T.J. Watt, and they're going to bring in more pieces. The biggest addition to the defense right now is obviously Patrick Queen, and it was a necessity because their starting linebacker Cole Holcomb went down with an ACL. So now they're going to bring in more pieces. I wouldn't be surprised, and I've said it, and people come at me on Twitter about it. Don't be surprised if the Steelers make a play for Willie Gay Jr. In Kansas City. They're going to try to add more linebacker depth. Overall, man, what the Pittsburgh Steelers has done is they really gotten younger, because now that you drop Deontay Johnson, you know they can draft really well at the receiver position, so they will do it. They'll let go of Allen Robinson. They're going to get younger, they're going to get faster, and they're going to become more explosive. I don't think Russell Wilson will be asked to do a whole lot solely because of the defense in the run game.
What else we got?
Moving on to second and football. The Buffalo Bills have done absolutely nothing in free agency. However, Deion Dawkins was re-signed, and he had some really interesting sound when asked about the potential of adding T. Higgins, of all people, to the Bills. Here is what my guy, Deion Dawkins, had to say.
As long as we're not getting no Jets guys, I'm good. I'm cool. Like T. Higgins is a player that can help Josh and help this team get to where we have to go. So if T. Higgins is the guy that we're looking for, then hey.
So Dawkins is a vocal leader in the locker room, and any opportunity he has, he bashes the New York Jets. Is this sort of animosity good for the NFC?
Yeah, it's great for the rivalry from a fan base standpoint. He also got his ass kicked by Michael Clemens after a Bills-Jets game, and he's embarrassed because Clemens did kick his ass, or certainly would have kicked his ass if his teammates didn't come and protect him in the tunnel there after a game. And I love the fact that he hates the New York Jets. He said good things about Quinnen Williams. Yeah. He said, I like him. Good guy, good player. Because he's right, he is. Good guy, good player.
Yeah.
And so he's not totally a buffoon, but this is why sports is great. Like, do you think he has a personal vendetta against a guy solely because that guy happened to be drafted by or signed a contract with the Jets? No. He hates the franchise, as he should. He's a Bills player. So I love this. This is what fuels great rivalries. I don't think anything of it other than him being playful and trying to fan the flames of a great rivalry. Because I'd remind Deion Dawkins that Zach Wilson beat your ass last year. We all saw it on national TV with a touchdown pass to Garrett Wilson while you were on the sideline eating God knows what, saying, how the hell did we lose that game to Zach effing Wilson?
Did Zach Wilson beat him, or did their own quarterback beat them?
Whatever. Zach Wilson threw the touchdown pass that won the game, and it was voted the #1 touchdown catch of the year in the NFL last year. You can go check. I watched. It was #1 on his back, Garrett Wilson. Plus, Deion Dawkins, how many Super Bowls have you been to with the Buffalo Bills?
Waiting.
You haven't been to playoffs in 12 years, Craig.
And that's correct, Mr. Bills fan. But remember this. I've got one little carrot that you don't have, that Deion Dawkins doesn't have.
Is there going to be a vice presidential candidate?
Josh Allen doesn't have. My quarterback might be living in a White House in November. And
so you get to go no matter what.
I got that, and you all don't have that. Meaning rules changes that benefit the Jets.
Okay.
Blackouts in Buffalo.
Oh, my God.
And whatever else it takes to try to buy ourselves a Super Bowl title. So zip your lip, Deion Dawkins, but I think it's great, and that's the kind of stuff fans love.
Some interesting news out of Minnesota for third and football. Greg, I want to get your take on this. There are reports that Justin Jefferson turned down a $30 million a year deal before last season. Now, with Sam Darnold looking like the starting quarterback in Minnesota, are they truly at risk of losing Justin Jefferson?
Let me start with this. I would have signed that. Just saying.
Yes.
I would have signed that right away. I'm not Justin Jefferson, though, however. But yes, they are at risk of losing Justin Jefferson. And without bringing Kirk Cousins back, a guy that he had a relationship with, that he wanted, he was vocal about keeping them, trying to retain Kirk Cousins. He's always been vocal about that. Now it's about, what do you want, Justin Jefferson? Because he has all the leverage. He's the face of that franchise. I understand they can do whatever they want to do.
They can franchise him.
But they can do that.
Yeah.
However, you're going to play to your fan base. That is what happens. And if Justin Jefferson is not a part of your future moving forward, and you don't have a quarterback, and you don't have a reason why you can sell to your fan base, we're going to choose this guy over Justin Jefferson, you got a huge problem.
Yeah, they have a major problem. And if the story is accurate, no reason to believe it's not accurate, that he turned down the $30 million a year offer, which means there had to be 50, 60, 70 million guaranteed, I would think, in that deal whenever it was actually made a year ago. They're going to lose him because when you're a great wide receiver like that, and, it's a different era than when you guys played. There's like, kind of players now dictating where they go, and teams kind of, allowing them to do that in a lot of cases, understanding that the team does control your future with that franchise tag. Nobody wants a guy that's miserable being in the locker room. It's bad for business, right? They don't have a legitimate starting quarterback, all due respect to Sam Darnold. But I've got a solution that makes sense because you can't lose Justin Jefferson and get nothing. That doesn't make any sense to me. If you franchise him, you're creating just more bad blood between you and the player. So you have an opportunity now, I think, to get a bunch of draft picks and a wide receiver. And to me, I would pick up the phone and call Cincinnati in a minute. Cincinnati has been freeing up cap space left and right if you haven't been paying attention. And they're like, certainly top 10, maybe even better than that right now with available cap space, right? Joe Mixon was the latest to get cut. I think, and again, you could wiggle this as much as you want to. This is just a kind of top of my head idea where you send Justin Jefferson to Cincinnati where the big three musketeers get reunited. Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, like the old LSU days. Let's run it back, right? In return, you give them T. Higgins, who's asked for a trade because he's on the franchise tag for the moment, and you give him, I made that up, a second-round pick because that's a valuable pick, and a fourth-round pick. So they get three guys who start for them immediately, assuming they draft well. You get rid of a wide receiver that you're not going to sign to a long-term deal, and that's T. Higgins, and you bring in a better wide receiver. And I'm saying to myself, I'm trying to figure out why the Bengals have made some of the moves they've made. And it's very clear to me they are clearing out cap space to make a bigger acquisition at some point this offseason or multiple acquisitions. You take care of everything for both teams. The Vikings get 3 starters out of it and a legitimate wide receiver who now gets his wish to be a number 1 wide receiver on an NFL franchise. And with that, he'd get a new contract from Minnesota. Justin Jefferson gets to be reunited with his favorite quarterback and his old buddy on the other side of Jamar Chase, and everybody wins. You're trading outside of your conference, outside of your division, and you're getting legitimate value for a guy in his prime. I think it works.
Yeah, so we talked about this before the show, and this was something that I was thinking that Justin Jefferson kind of wants, just without saying it, because he's been doing everything right. He's a consummate pro. He's there. He's physically there. He's mentally there when he's available. But you look at the history of these LSU guys, and they have this rapport with one another where they train together. Odell Beckham Jr., obviously Jarvis Landry. They got the opportunity to do it in Cleveland with Baker Mayfield at the quarterback position. But this is a unique situation where if you're turning down what is allegedly over $30+ million a year annually, you don't want to be there. Right. You just don't want to be there, and you don't believe that something that they bring in is going to be what you once had in a Joe Burrow and alongside your guy Jamar Chase. So this is real for me, and as you laid out, it makes sense.
Yeah. Now, look, you can't wiggle with what you give back. I was just making up a potential trade, and you can argue that it's not enough value. That's fine. That wasn't the point of it. It just makes sense. Justin Jefferson, unless I misread the situation, is not going to ever sign a big contract to be with the Minnesota Vikings beyond this year. I just don't see that happening right now. And if he did turn down that money, he's telling you it's not going to happen because that's absurd money for a wide receiver to make in the NFL. Speaking of Joe Mixon real quick, I should mention that while the Bengals let him go, then there was a trade. They kind of pulled that back, but very weird, kind of the business of football. I thought he was let go and was legitimately let go in a free agent.
Rang.
But something happened. The Houston Texans made a deal for him for a 7th-round pick, which I've never seen that before, where you tell me a guy got cut, he's now unrestricted free agent.
Put on the phone.
But then you rescind that, and then trade him for a 7th-round pick to, I know you're Houston Texans, who you love, who you're crazy, whatever. But in any event, you got Joe Mixon. He replaces Devin Singletary, who, of course, they let go, who is obviously signed.
Yeah, he fits their offense great. He's a hell of a pass catcher, running back. He'll do great in that offense. So
yeah. Meanwhile, the reports are true. The New York Jets not only have our next vice president, but the best quarterback, arguably in the entire league, but certainly the AFC. But what's next for Justin Fields? The situation that created some strife on the show between me and my dear friend Greg Jennings, who's offended by the notion that we should treat him like Julian Edelman and make him a wide receiver and a punt returner. We'll get into that right after this on FS1. So I'm going to go out there. I'm going to get a badass, legitimate, generational talent in Caleb Williams, and I'm going to give him DJ Moore on one side and Justin Fields on the other side.
What?
Guard that.
Because basically what you're saying.
No, he's playing Madden.
What you're saying is Justin Fields is a better wide receiver than some of these guys who've been playing wide receiver their entire lives and careers.
Yeah.
And you're going to say, oh, Justin Fields, he's better than them. No, stop it. It's not that easy.
Yeah, Greg was offended by it, and it brought out the uglies on social media. This person thinks, quote unquote, that I must be on something.
Maybe talking to Greg.
I mean, that's accurate. I can't deny that one. And I think we have another one you guys want to put up there. Is that right? After Greg and I bowed on that, if he can learn to run routes, this honestly is not a bad take. We've seen it before with Terrell Pryor, Ohio State starting quarterback. Justin is a special talent with the ball in his hands in open space. That's my guy right there, Gage. I like it. And then if Fields is truly a team player, he'll understand he's not a quarterback. Look at people coming out supporting me. I love it. But then there was Greg Jennings on social media yesterday, going outside the family trust here yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Craigie doesn't believe what he proposed.
Fraud.
I'm sorry. We all sat through 3 minutes of that. And then what kind of emoji is that? I don't even know what that emoji is. Is that a frustration emoji? A frazzled emoji? I don't want to be on that show anymore emoji. There's the emoji in real life.
That's it.
Exactly.
Right there. He took it very personally because he was a wide receiver. So I did a little digging yesterday. I did a little research because you're of the belief, as a proud former wide receiver, which I have great respect for, that it ain't that easy just to put on cleats and run routes in the NFL. I mean, the notion of putting your left foot in front of your right foot and running and turning around is very difficult for many people to try to do on an NFL level. Except that, is it really? Is it really? With all due respect, pros versus Joes. How about Mookie Betts? LA Dodger rock star, former Boston Red Sox. He's not a football player. He never played wide receiver. But look at him right here. Oh, what's that? Running routes, catching a football. It looks so hard.
No, first of all.
I mean, how do you possibly do it, Willie?
Mookie Betts was a hell of a high school football player.
Now he's a hell of a high school
and a very good
player.
basketball player.
Look at that route. Look at that route.
Absolutely.
That route was on point.
Yeah, I know.
Cutting, turning, catching. It's so hard to do that, though, Willie. How do you, I mean, I am blessed that I share a studio with someone who figured out how to run straight and turn around and catch the ball. So thank you for allowing me in your presence, Greg. And if I offended you yesterday, I'm not sorry.
So there's this thing that we do when we see something that kind of fits the narrative in our take. We show it as if, oh, was Mookie Betts running against professional defense?
I think that was Deion Sanders.
It was just on air with
was that Ty Law?
his buddy. Look, this happens, and I'm not saying we haven't seen it before. What I'm simply saying is, for you to sit here and say that Justin Fields can just today turn into a receiver, and by season start, oh, he's one of the starting. Look, no. Absolutely not. It's not happening. And this is no knock on Justin Fields. Justin Fields would take it personal because he believes that he's a good enough quarterback to be a starting quarterback in this league, which I believe to be true. You just want to see him do whatever it takes to stay on that Bears roster because it doesn't appear that he's going to be moved. Well, he can still be moved, and he can still play quarterback. I would like to see the Bears take a chance on him and afford him that opportunity. How realistic that is, it's not very probably, and it's not going to probably happen. However, he's going to be a quarterback, and he's going to be a good quarterback in this league.
Well, those are two very different things. Him being a quarterback and being a good one are two different things. He's been a quarterback. He hasn't been a good one. And yet I'll acknowledge he's shown some spurts where you want to buy into the notion of, wow, look at that throw on the run. A dot right in the basket. But he's been in the league for 3 years. He's not a good quarterback. And here's what we've learned up to this point. I agree with you that quarterbacks have been traded around the draft when you're jockeying for position. You make deals on draft day or right before. So I'm not suggesting that that can happen. What I am telling you is that nobody wants him today. And that's provable facts because other quarterbacks have been signed either to be starters or fight for a starting job. Some guys have obviously been signed solely to be backups, right? But none of those teams, as far as we know, has expressed any interest at all in acquiring Justin Fields to be their quarterback. So I'm not quite sure why people are offended, and I don't know how much you're truly offended on a personal level, that what I'm saying, fair enough, we'll get over it, we'll get through it. But I'm actually being complimentary of Justin Fields because he's an amazing athletic talent. His best attribute as a player is with the ball in his hand in open space, making guys miss, and running for 50, 60-yard plays, highlight reel stuff. His best moments as a quarterback have not been throwing the football or commanding an offense. So what I'm merely saying is I don't want to lose, if I'm a Bears fan, his athletic ability, which makes him a problem to defend. I don't want to just give that up because he didn't turn out to be a great quarterback, because I think I can get a great quarterback with Caleb Williams. So I'm not in the business of getting rid of mad talented guys when I can put them in a different spot that allows them to excel. And I'll walk you through one better. The only starting position left right now in the NFL is the Denver Broncos starting quarterback job.
Yep.
And I can tell you as of now, again, could change around the draft and we can revisit this conversation, the Denver Broncos are not going to get Justin Fields. They will sooner sign Jimmy Garoppolo this week and make him their starting quarterback than they will Justin Fields. Gardner Minshew is going to fight for a starting job before Justin Fields is, right? Drew Lock got a job, probably the Giants starting quarterback week 1 instead of Daniel Jones. Lots of guys have gone to different franchises. Atlanta made a decision. We're going to give Kirk Cousins $180 million instead of making a deal for Justin Fields.
Sam Darnold.
Nobody wants him.
Whoa, so let's push back. I'm going to push back on the nobody wants him idea because I don't believe that no one wants him. It's what they would have to give up to acquire him and obtain that. So for me, it's like Mac Jones. You gave up a 6th-round draft.
Right.
I'll do that if the Chicago Bears are willing to take that.
And they're not.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's what the Chicago Bears hold the cards in their hands ultimately on how it's perceived.
Can I ask you a question? A serious question. I don't understand why it's offensive to say 3 years into your career, we no longer think you're a franchise quarterback, but we love all this other stuff you do, and we don't want to lose that.
Because we know.
Why is that offensive?
One, because we know he wasn't dealt a fair hand.
And I want to be clear. I'm not saying, as a guy who played wide receiver, you don't want people to think it's that easy to do. That's a different story. But to the player, we're saying you do all these 3-4 things over here as good or better than anyone we've ever had. You're just not good over here, so we're going to put you in a spot where you're better.
You can't truly evaluate that when you've never really had anything to support.
He's never had an offensive line. He's never had receivers. He just got Cole Kmet on board.
That's my main argument.
Craig, your whole point is he's so electric when he has the ball in his hands.
Yes,
and in the open field, it's so hard to tackle him. Yeah. Do you know why he always has the ball in his hands in the open field? Because he's running away from the defensive line.
But it's also,
he's always under pressure. He has no one to throw to. That is why he is in that position.
I think year 1 and 2, not so much last year.
And he was good last year.
I think we overstate that a little bit. I think he does it because it's what he's best at. And as an athlete, you know this better than me. you act on instinct as much as anything.
You do.
And my instinct is I got a better shot of getting the first down taken off than I do trying to squeeze the ball into a tight space. So I'm going to do what it comes naturally to me.
Craig, you're talking about one of the issues with him this year was him holding on to the ball too long in the pocket. And on top of that, him himself said, man, because there's too much going on in my mind.
Right.
Luke Getsy never put me in a position.
And he questioned the coaching staff.
Right.
And all that
He never
stuff,
put me in a position where I am efficient and I can think clearly. And you didn't give him any pieces. So for me, I'm with Greg. Give the man enough. Give him enough where he can operate with and watch him work.
And here's why it's, I know we got to take a break real quick, why this is a very unique conversation in the moment. If the Chicago Bears didn't have the first pick in the draft, this isn't even a topic.
Correct.
They're going into year 4 with him, and they're going to roll the dice again.
100%
It's only a conversation because many people believe, and we'll find out in the future, that Caleb Williams is a generational star.
Yes.
Right? A franchise quarterback that you'd be lucky to have. That's why this is a conversation. You have a chance to get a quarterback that most people, never that no one's 100%, that most people think is a generational talent. Are you going to pass on that talent because you hope that Justin Fields one day figures it out and becomes a competent franchise quarterback? And all I'm saying is I can get both. I can get that amazing open field star that is impossible to take down, and I can get the generational quarterback. And now I've got an offense that puts me right up there in the NFC with the other great offenses.
Yeah.
We got to take a break. I'm so sorry. I know you guys have a lot to say.
I do.
Thankfully for me, I don't have to hear it. Coming up, Aaron Rodgers might become the Vice President of the United States of America. And are the Kansas City Chiefs getting ready to wow everybody and do what the Dallas Cowboys couldn't do? And that sign somebody, anybody.
Wake up,
We'll
Cowboys.
find out next.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Carton Show. We have some big news for the Baltimore Ravens. They signed that man, Derrick Henry. He signed a 2-year, potentially $16 million deal, $9 million guaranteed. This shores up what was already a very strong running attack for the Ravens, and in my mind makes them the clear-cut favorites to again repeat as the #1 seed in the AFC, and they will avoid throwing the ball too much in the playoffs because they have Derrick Henry in the backfield. Craig, in your mind, does this make the Ravens the clear-cut AFC favorite?
No. It doesn't actually move the needle at all for me with them. I think they're a really good team anyway, playoff team for sure. Maybe even division champion. Maybe even they do get the #1 seed. I don't think this pushes them above and beyond where they were a year ago, where they had the best running attack in all of football. I tell you what it does mean to me. As we look at the deal that Derrick Henry signed, 2 years, $16 million, $9 million guaranteed. You know what it means to me? It means to me that the Eagles overpaid for Saquon Barkley. That's what it means to me.
Yeah, I mean,
like in an embarrassing fashion to give him $37.5 million over 3 years and $26 million guaranteed. And good for him. Get the guaranteed loot, which is why going back a few days, how can you be mad at the dude?
Yeah.
Look at what the other running backs got. And Philly overpaid to get you from a division rival. More on that in a little bit. But what I'm trying to figure out is if the Baltimore Ravens had the best running attack last year anyway, and that was with 3 different guys based on injuries, obviously, being their go-to running back throughout the season, how do they improve upon that? And to me, it's not an upgrade in talent. And I'll acknowledge that Henry is one of the great running backs of the last decade in the NFL, and I would put him right into Canton, Ohio as a Hall of Famer. You could debate that another day, I suppose. But to me, the issue is Todd Monken going to call the game right? Are you going to use your running attack in an AFC Championship game because it's what your team is based on and the success of running the ball? Because they didn't lose to the Kansas City Chiefs because of their inability to run the ball. They lost to their Chiefs because they refused to run the ball. Correct. So I'm not sure why Derrick Henry, who I love, and I do think is a great addition to that offense, as long as you don't lose sight that that is your offense. And I think that's what bit them in that game against the Chiefs when the Chiefs came out and scored that touchdown after the Ravens went 3 and out on their first possession. I think a little panic set in, chasing points against Kansas City. So again, good signing. I like it. It fits. Greg and I said it yesterday. That franchise made the most sense. but it doesn't change for me one bit of what I think they're going to do.
Yeah, and for me, it's more about the fear factor, especially being the AFC North. The Pittsburgh Steelers know the Cleveland Browns fear the fact that the Baltimore Ravens now have Derrick Henry. What the Baltimore Ravens should fear is the fact that they don't have Patrick Queen. They lost Geno Stone, and that this defense led by Mike McDonald has really taken a step back as far as playmakers. Because the face of this team this year, as much as Lamar Jackson had an MVP type year, was the defense. Is the fact that they walked into San Francisco, beat up on the Niners, they beat up on the.
And stop there. It was Patrick Queen that came out and said when he talked about system quarterbacks and kind of smoke and mirror offenses, and all the different kind of things that a Mike McDaniel offense is, and what they kind of accused San Francisco of during the season last year. It was Queen. He was the guy that stepped up and said, listen, we're coming to punch you in the mouth.
Correct.
You're either going to take that punch and stand and fight back, or you're not. And most teams last year during the regular season, wilted at the sight of blood.
And think about it. Talk about the Seahawks, what happened when they played against the Baltimore Ravens. They got their butts whooped. Detroit, I love Detroit.
Sure.
And Man Campbell and company got dog walked. So for me, I like the addition of Derrick Henry. Overall, it's the defense that you now have to say, man, now they're human. They're no longer superheroes how we thought they were last year.
Yeah, the addition of Derrick Henry, it absolutely fits. And I don't think it puts him over the top, but what it does do is when you're offensive play caller, it's hard for you to look at your sheet and your script and just overlook the fact that you got one of arguably the best backs in all of football and say, nope, I'm not going to give him the ball. I'm not going to give him a chance. Especially when you know the type of back he is. He's a volume back. He has to get going. If he leans on the defense, they will get worn down. Where I will look at and say their biggest vacancy is not just on the field defensively, you lost your defensive coordinator.
Yep.
We're talking about all these players and why they were so great. It was because of Mike McDonald. And so you don't have that. And so the play caller it's gonna look a little different. You hope that it doesn't. But we've seen over the course of these NFL games and seasons, when you lose a play caller and your talent is still the same or similar, it just doesn't quite equate to the same production.
The Ravens had the best running attack last year, right? And then they basically replaced Gus Edwards with Derrick Henry. And anyone who watched the Ravens games, Gus Edwards, they're punching in the end zone guy, and Derrick Henry does it better than anybody. And one of the knocks about this, which really bothers me, is people are like, he's 30 years old. He's got so much wear and tear. Look at how often this man runs the ball. When you're Todd Monken, that to me is a very positive stat. He's available, and he's running the ball, and he's wearing down defenses over the course of games, wearing down defenses over the course of seasons, and this is undeniable evidence to me that Todd Monken is going to recommit to running the ball, and Lamar Jackson can also run the ball. They're the best running the ball offense in the league.
But here's the problem with that stat is that the team he played for, right? The team he played for were Ryan Tannehill, a quarterback, or Will Levis, for last year at quarterback. He's the best player in that offense, so he becomes the guy you give the ball to 20, 25 times a game. Yeah, and here's why it's a problem. Everyone knows that when you look at when you break out the Derrick Henry stats, fourth quarter is his best quarter. You wear down defenses, and here comes the train, coming through the offensive line, and you're tired, very hard to stop that because of how he runs. But you can only get to that if you're committed to giving him the ball, let's say 18 to 24 times a game. He's not a 9-carry-a-game guy. Never has been.
Nope.
And that is a lot of wear and tear on a 30-year-old running back. So
a lot of availability.
To me, you also have to look at it this way, and why the question is somewhat convoluted is the entire Ravens squad from last year is not coming back, and we're adding Derrick Henry to it.
Right.
They lost dudes, Queen being the biggest loss of all, at linebacker for them. So it's not the same team coming back on both sides of the ball. Odell Beckham's not coming back, and on and on and on, right? So the reality is that you're not going to put their success or their failures this year solely on, was Derrick Henry a great addition? They've got a lot of the things that go into that.
And no mistake, listen, they lost John Simpson to the Jets, right? They're starting left guard, who was a big-time run blocker. Or Ronnie Stanley, who's a big-time tackle on the left side. He was in and out of the lineup. So there's some instability with this team. They didn't just, to your point, have a come-up. They're still the Ravens that you have to now question.
So second headline is interesting. Now, Patrick Mahomes, remember he signed that
He's running for vice president?
No, he's not. He's not. Someone else. And he has restructured his deal, which clears up about $21 million of cap space, $22 million of cap space for Kansas City. Now, they have been quiet in free agency thus far, but when you take a look at these potential additions for the Chiefs. Do you expect them to use this space that Mahomes has cleared up to add one of these players?
Look, I think a lot of people going after those 6 guys right there. Tyron Smith, the problem with him is that he's injured a lot. No one's going to question, what he did for the Dallas Cowboys as long as he did it. The key guy there to me specifically for Kansas City is Calvin Ridley.
Of course.
Right? I mean, I've been saying that since day one when it looked like Jackson was not going to bring him back and forfeit that second-round draft pick to Atlanta based on the deal when they got him after the gambling suspension. And to me, that deal should get done. And the way the Kansas City Chiefs did it, which is interesting, they are writing a check to Patrick Mahomes for $27 million, and they did it as a signing bonus as opposed to a roster bonus. Real quick in the weeds. Why do you do that? Because signing bonuses get spread out over the length of your contract that's left. So Patrick Mahomes is now $5 million a year against the cap for the next 5 years because it's now a signing bonus and not a roster bonus. So the Kansas City Chiefs now have about $15 million in change under the cap. They clear up a bunch of space, obviously, by doing that deal. And I don't know what we're waiting for. If I'm Calvin Ridley, that's where I want to go. And if I'm Patrick Mahomes, that's the dude I want. It is a no-brainer. He becomes, all due respect to Rashee Rice, who had a great rookie season for them in winning a Super Bowl, he becomes the deep threat that they have not had since Tyreek Hill went to Miami. And now you're looking at the prospect of their entire defense is coming back, and now you've improved the offense. Now you're talking three-peat, and it's real. Doesn't mean they're going to do it, but now you've given Patrick Mahomes the weapon he legitimately has not had in the last 2 years, and that's scary.
But also, don't forget the Chiefs have draft capital and they have money right now due to the restructuring. I'm going to be honest. We were just talking about Justin Jefferson. Why not pick up the phone and call him?
They don't have enough cap space for that deal.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes, as of right now. Now, look, you could move other deals, I guess, but that deal you can't make happen.
Yeah, but Calvin really just simply makes sense.
Do it, right?
You obviously have an issue at the receiver position. You want to continue to bolster that unit. You're going to do it in the draft. Obviously, there's depth there. Calvin Ridley just makes sense. And when you think about what they have been doing thus far in free agency, they've been locking up their own guys. So maybe they're like, you know what? We still want to keep Snead. That's outside
beyond
guy,
the franchise,
beyond the franchise tag. So that's a potential move that they may make as well. I just think when you think about moving money the way that they just moved it, Calvin really makes a lot of sense, and then you add even more depth.
And my gut is you make that move because there's a specific target in mind.
Yep.
And again, maybe it's one of the other guys, but to me, it's Calvin Ridley. It's a no-brainer.
For me, it's not just Calvin Ridley or bust. You think about Mecole Hardman caught them the touchdown that won them the Super Bowl, and he was dropped by the Jets. MVS had 2 huge catches in the previous 2 games. Like, even if you come home with a Curtis Samuel or a Hollywood Brown, that's a huge upgrade over those positions, and Rashee Rice keeps developing, you draft. Like, the Chiefs are going to end up, I believe, with a wide receiver based on this information.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they need, right? Because when you look at what they did last year, as much as Mahomes won them the Super Bowl, and then, of course, the Chris Jones playing that third down against San Francisco, the weakness of that team this past year was the wide receiving core and their lack of production. Rashee Rice is a keeper. He had a great year. I don't want to diminish that as a rookie. He and Zay Flowers were standout stars at wide receiver, in the AFC. But to me, you go get, I like Calvin Ridley. You can pick your favorite poison on that. It makes them a better team. And look, you got number 15 there, and now you've given him more targets. I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl, but who's going to beat them? Oh, that's right, the Jets.
All right.
I keep forgetting about the Jets, Greg
Let's
Jennings.
move on to our final headline. I've got huge news from the Dallas Cowboys.
What?
They retained Trent Sieg.
Yeah.
Their long snapper. Does the retention of long snapper Sieg make them the clear Super Bowl favorites coming into next season?
Who?
Trent Sieg.
What?
The long snapper. They're all in on long snap.
They're all in?
On long snap.
Yeah, you got to sign them. You got to sign everybody now.
Wait,
all in.
Everybody matters.
Did you say they're all in?
They're all in.
When does that start? They're the only team, I think, in football that didn't sign a single free agent from elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
I think everyone signed somebody. But I think you got one guy, at least 2 guys at least. But look, if I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, it's what I said a month ago. There's a real concern now that the sport has passed my owner by. and I love Jerry Jones. And I'm sad to say that because I wish he owned my franchise, even without a Super Bowl in the last 28 years, which is what Cowboy fans are looking at. Might as well just make it 29 because they're not going to come back and win the Super Bowl now. And it's crazy to me. What's weird about it right now is the notion that these contracts are too rich for the Cowboys' blood, because that's apparently what Dallas is putting out there, that they couldn't make it work financially. Now, the Cowboys right now have $2 million in cap space.
I think they have 8.
But the reality is that all you have to do is restructure deals and sign a guy like CeeDee Lamb to the extension you're going to give him at some point and open up tons of cap space.
Right.
And this is, again, why do the Cowboys have a problem? Because Jerry Jones will not hire somebody to make these decisions, to run their cap, and go out there and be a real general manager. And that's why the Dallas Cowboys are stuck in neutral. They are not winning a Super Bowl anytime soon.
And that's why, I know Greg scoffed at the notion of Derrick Henry joining the Cowboys. You got to understand, Derrick Henry trains in Dallas, lives in Dallas. He was making 12.
He didn't fit the Cowboys' offense.
He did from this standpoint. At the end of the day, the Cowboys' record this season was easier than what it's going to be this year. You're talking about Dak Prescott. One way to protect him is with a run game. Yeah, he's not the viral scat back like I Saquon Barkley. But when you talk about protecting Dak in that offense, why not have a juggernaut at that position? You're not going to give him the ball as much anyway. So I thought he was a great addition. We can argue differently about that.
That right there is why I say Derrick Henry wasn't a great fit, because he's a volume back where you have to be able to feature him and give him the ball.
Right, but at the end of the day, it is what it is with him. You need him in goal line situations like Ezekiel thrived in. You also need him in short yardage.
Well, they didn't get him, so.
Right, but my point is, when you talk about Jerry making a splash move to kind of convince Cowboy Nation that you're all in, that's a move you couldn't make, especially when Derrick Henry was making 12.5 last year.
Just
now he's making 9.
Jerry Jones is the problem now.
Craig,
we can talk around it all we want. Jerry Jones is the problem.
Craig, when you said that last week, I was like, oh, here goes Craig again, just talking crazy. I'm starting to think you're right. I'm
it's about time you came around.
The fact that they don't have a GM, the fact that Jerry Jones is making all decisions, the fact that you watch these 48 hours go by, and no decisions have been made. We all knew going into this they were going to restructure Dak's contract. He's $59 million against the cap. Why don't you do that? Someone explain it to me.
Why is CeeDee Lamb going to play on the final year of a contract? Why has Dak not been re-signed yet? This is an owner who unfortunately is asleep at the wheel. And he's got nobody to blame but himself. And if I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, enough's enough. Hey, look, I can't make you sell the team. I get it. But I can, bang the drum that it's time to hire quality, respected front office people to start making front office decisions that make your franchise better. And I'm not the only one saying it. We talk a lot about how family members really should stay out of things.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for them to do that. You guys have lived that, obviously. But Dak Prescott's brother, Tad, went out on social media yesterday. So if it wasn't clear already, it is now. The Eagles have the best front office in the NFL. Hashtag, how about them Cowboys? Now, I don't want to argue whether or not the Eagles have the best front office. I don't think they do. That being the case, though, it's a shot at the Dallas Cowboys because whether you like the Eagles' moves or not, the Eagles went out there and addressed needs. And they got high-profile players who will make them, in theory, on paper, better. Saquon Barkley, Bryce Huff, and they bring back Gardner Johnson, right? Who apologized to Eagle fans for what he said on the way out.
Love you guys.
Are we still upset about that?
But the point is, they made moves. They got better, at least on paper, in their opinion. They fed the angry beast the food and the raw meat they were begging for. That's a smart way to do things. The Dallas Cowboys have done nothing, and that is a real problem when your owner, who controls everything there, comes out and goes, we're all in this year, and then does nothing to back it up. If I'm a Cowboy fan, I know full well I'm not winning a Super Bowl this year. It's over.
What also makes you question is how many viable free agents that you really need that can help you are still out there. Like, obviously, we talked about Eric Armstead, but they still need an edge rusher, right? They still need help in the secondary. Like, those are some names right now. Justice Simmons will be a great grab. Yeah. You talk about, hopefully, if you love Tyron Smith, you can bring him back because you have a void at the left tackle position. Maybe Calvin Ridley, that works out. But overall, we're starting to dwindle down here.
And let me give you an example. I'm going to take those names off the screen. I'm going to just talk about Chase Young for a second. Chase Young is in his mid-20s, right?
24.
We know he's got the talent. Yeah. Obviously, he wasn't great with San Francisco, and that may have scared some teams off, his want to and all that stuff, right? But Chase Young, when he wants to be, is a damn good football player and can dominate a game. Chase Young, the story I saw yesterday, is now visiting 3 franchises, all right? He's visiting the Carolina Panthers, who are a joke of an organization. He's visiting the New Orleans Saints, who didn't make the playoffs last year, and God knows what this year will look like for them. And he's visiting the Tennessee Titans, another team that's on the outside looking in, albeit with a very young quarterback that they now believe in Will Levis. How are the Dallas Cowboys not even talking to Chase Young or asking him to come by to have a conversation?
Because I think,
just walk me through that.
Because of everything you just said. Listen, you can never coach a guy to bite, right? Either you're going to bite or you're not. With a guy of his stature and everything he came into the league, especially after his first year, you thought he was on his way to having a Hall of Fame career. The fact that he, on tape, showed lack of hustle in a NFC championship game, you know damn well Jerry, who conceptually, like I said yesterday, doesn't spend a lot at free agent, is not going to be put that hook in him.
And here's the results of not getting anyone, whether it's Chase Young or anyone else. Here's what happens. When you're Micah Parsons, when you're CeeDee Lamb, not so much Dak because he's locked in. He knows he's going to get another couple $100 million bucks. So what does he care at the end of the day, right? But when you're those two guys, you've got Micah under contract for this year and next. But obviously after this year, you better do something because he ain't playing on a 5th-year option.
Right.
And you've got CD who's lame duck right now with the final year of his contract. You get to a place where maybe I don't want to sign a long-term deal with you.
Yep, nope.
I don't trust what you're doing.
Like, I get that. I totally get where you're headed.
Yeah.
But you're a Dallas Cowboy. There's a lot that comes with that.
Yeah.
And you know that Jerry, if there's one thing he will do, he's going to take care of his guys.
Yeah.
And his guys are Micah Parsons and CeeDee Lamb. So you know he's gonna take care of those guys. So it's not a whether or not you have to make up in your mind, am I willing to walk away from this situation?
Right.
And all that comes with it? I doubt that they are, because we've talked ad nauseum Micah Parsons and having a podcast and doing all these things. Does he have those things if he's somewhere else?
Craig, you talked about how many running backs were available.
12 of them.
12 running backs, notable running backs, not some small-time guys. Yeah. And then they let go of Tony Pollard, right? Yeah. They have a needed running back. These guys didn't sign for big money.
None of them.
And they said that Zach Moss, who signed for about $4 million, was too much for them.
Right.
To me, that is a sleep at the wheel. You've got a need at a skill position, a big spot of your offense, and you let one guy walk who said he would take a hometown discount, and you replaced him with a long snap.
Well, I can tell you, right now, running back 1 for the Dallas Cowboys is that little guy. Deuce Vaughn, the Oompa Loompa.
Even Rico Dowdle. Yeah. Was pretty good for them last year. He's not on the team.
Look, it's if I'm a Cowboy fan, thank God I'm not. I got my own problems with the New York Jets. I got a quarterback who may bail out of playing football this year because he wants to be the vice president. And he's not disavowing that either, which is a real problem. But the Dallas Cowboys have foobarred another offseason. Speaking of Aaron Rodgers,
can we talk about him next?
No joke, Robert Kennedy Jr., who's going to be running for president as an independent candidate, came out yesterday and said he is considering Aaron Rodgers as his running mate, and they've had many conversations about it. We'll get into that clown show right after this.
Calling.
Yeah. All right, let's check out a little Subway. Not only do they slice their meats fresh, they got the foot long. My favorite's the pretzel one, of course. Get the churro cake, whichever one you like. Just know that when you go to Subway, you're going to walk out with a big smile on your face at some we here call the Carton.
Oh.
Yeah, buddy. That's the foot longer, Greg.
Yeah.
Look at my guy right there, Aaron Rodgers, getting ready to be the Vice President of the United States of America. And that's his campaign video right there, because I'm an American. And I hold that American flag, and I run with it with great pride. This is the most Jet-esque thing I've ever seen in my lifetime. Like when we sing that song, it's just the same. Oh, Jets. This one's not even the Jets' fault. So let's give the Jets front office a break.
Point.
Let's give Joe Douglas a break, despite the fact they did nothing to make their team all that much better thus far in free agency. Let's give Robert Saleh a break. Let's give Woody Johnson a break. My guy, Aaron Rodgers, the same guy that about a month and a half ago went on television and uttered very interesting words about distractions
What?
with the franchise.
No distractions.
Everything that we do has to have a purpose. The bull crap that has nothing to do with winning has to get out of the building. That was January 8th, right?
Yep.
And now here we are 2 months later, and he is a distraction.
But
it has nothing to do with football, and he is now, according to Robert Kennedy Jr., entertaining the idea of being the vice presidential running mate with Kennedy's presidential hopes in this year's election for president. Excuse me?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Excuse me?
It doesn't make sense. Jacoby said this franchise has been to the playoffs in 13 years. You did not play this season. You only lasted 4 snaps into your Jets career, and you're talking about being a VP. Like, as Jets fans, as somebody who wants to buy in and buy the jerseys, they up the ticket sales. This is not only a distraction, but it makes you want to beat Aaron Rodgers up in the street. Like, we need you to be the Jets starting quarterback. We need you to take this team to a division, not only win the division, go to the playoffs and possibly Super Bowl. Everything other than that, no Jets fans want to hear about. So this is all nonsense.
Let me just remind everybody, he wanted to be the Jeopardy host. Like, he went and tried out. This guy seriously wanted to host game shows, and now he's trying to be the vice president. Just be a quarterback.
Yeah, here's the thing. It's not his fault that Kennedy came out and said, I'm considering him. It's his fault that he didn't stop it right there and go, yes, I've talked to him. Hey, I do have some political aspirations at some point, but my focus right now is nothing but New York Jets football and getting to the playoffs and blah, blah, blah. But here's the reality that you know better than all of us, because you know the man and you played with him for a long time. He loves this. He eats this stuff up. And he is a prime example of, do what I say, not what I do. Because the rest of you guys have to cut out the crap. No more non-football stuff. No more distractions. Get it out. I, of course, can do whatever the hell I want and be a distraction if I choose to be.
Now we're talking.
Yes.
Now we're talking about what this really is about. When he talks about being a distraction, he doesn't see himself as a distraction.
I don't know how.
Right.
He sees himself as the reason why we're going to have a chance.
Yeah.
And if we're going to have a chance and I'm going to be here with all that I bring and provide, you guys better be all the way locked in. I'm going to be able to still throw the football. I'm going to still be able to make great decisions under center. Things that you've never seen, I'm going to do. And I'm going to provide you that.
Yeah.
But I need you to focus on everything, not me.
This is one of those things, again, this is not the Jets' fault. It's a rare moment where there's a level of incompetence and, clowns juggling that make it feel like, the New York Jets. This is an Aaron Rodgers situation, but it's so on brand for my beloved team that this is another thing now they've got to deal with. Because here's how this works. You guys all know this. The audience may not. The Jets now have to put out a statement today. Robert Saleh is going to be asked about it. Joe Douglas is going to be asked about it.
As quarterback running for vice president of the United States of America.
As crazy as it is. Yes.
It makes me look back at his whole time in New York. Right? Remember when he first got there, what did he do? He went to the Knicks game with his teammate, went to the Rangers game with his teammate,
he
went to the concert with his teammate. Oh, I don't want to be on Hard Knocks. But he's on Hard Knocks. Every second of Hard Knocks was about him. Then he tears his Achilles. Guess what? I can walk. Now I can throw the football.
Right.
And now I might come back. Remember, he held the Jets fans hostage about coming back to the end of the year.
If we're eligible for a playoff spot, I'm going to come back.
And then what's he doing? He's on every single podcast all summer. And now, just to top it all off, he's running potentially for the vice president seat of the United States.
I have to say this, just as an aside. I mean, it's pretty cool.
It is. It is.
How many people get to run for vice president?
How many Jets fans can say they're a Super Bowl champ?
No, I know. But I'm just saying, if I take all the football stuff out of my fandom out of it, just for a second.
I mean,
the dude's a quarterback. He's an athlete. That's what he is, right? But there's an aspect of it pretty cool.
There's nothing cool about this.
There's only
Do
three.
not support this.
Hang on.
You got to keep the main thing the main thing. Keep the main thing the main thing.
I get mad at you.
You can do whatever you want in 3 years.
I'm with you right now.
It's like,
I'm with you.
Here's a reality. there are only 3 people running for president, and by default, only 3 people running for vice president. We don't know their names just yet, outside of obviously Biden and Kamala Harris on that side, right? We don't know who's going to be running with Trump, and we don't know essentially yet who's running with Kennedy, who's no chance to win. But like, how many people get to say, I ran for vice president?
Craig.
Like,
How many people get to say, I'm a quarterback for the New York Jets?
a lot more.
But Jacoby, this is what's annoying about this.
That's true.
This is what's annoying about this. Out of this whole offseason, we've seen Sauce Gardner do his best in his young career, go out and try to recruit guys, right?
Yep.
We've seen other players on our defense go out and try to recruit to make the team better.
Yeah.
We have not seen a damn thing out of Aaron Rodgers.
Stop right there.
As far
Stop
as
right
recruiting
there.
wise.
Stop right
Who
there.
said we needed the punter and the kicker back?
Stop right
Okay.
there. Hold on, that's not fair.
Then who?
Now, I got to call you on that.
Help me.
Because we watched him do that last year, and we criticized every guy they got.
And they all suck.
Okay, so you can't now say, how come he's not recruiting?
But my point is, when that
we
headline,
don't want him
when
to
that
recruit.
headline comes out, if you're Aaron Rodgers and there's that headline that's saying that you want to be a vice president, and you're a 40-year-old coming off a torn Achilles with a team that's dying for a successful season.
Yeah?
It seems like you're distracted for the sole
You
fact.
think?
Yeah. And you're talking about distractions when you're the rest of your defense, by the way, who weren't the problem last year, who stood strong and possibly won the games you won, are doing their job in the offseason and recruiting guys.
Remember this, though,
How
Willie
about you
Colon?
go recruit guys?
Remember this. More guys played quarterback for the New York Jets last year than will run for vice president this year.
Regardless, he said anything that doesn't have anything to do with winning needs to be out of the building.
Thank you.
Well,
This has nothing to do with winning.
Right.
Nothing to do with winning.
all of a sudden, we're
His
gonna
words.
get our panties in a bunch because an athlete lied to us. Like,
No, we're putting our no, to your point.
Aaron Rodgers
Craig.
lied to me. Wow.
What side of the fence you on? You're excited that the Jets quarterback is potentially running for vice president?
Because
That's what you're doing?
I'll say this. I'm glad it's my team because I care about it so much.
I love it.
Like, it's so on brand for the Jets that all our hopes are tied to this guy, and he might decide, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go run for vice president of the United States of America. Now, many of you know, if you watch the show at all, that I am blessed to have a very good relationship with the New York Jet organization. And as a result, I obviously have built up a rapport with Aaron Rodgers. And every now and then, he likes to call me and leave me voicemails. Because as you guys know, I don't answer my phone all that much during the day. So this is a voicemail I did get yesterday from the fake Aaron Rodgers. And here's what the fake Aaron Rodgers had to say yesterday. Listen to this.
Craig, I know there have been a lot of rumors about me lately, but they aren't true. I wanted to make it clear that I am not going to do any sort of running. My Achilles heel is my Achilles heel. However, I am seriously considering joining RFK Jr. and running on his independent presidential ticket.
Oh, God.
Actually, you know what? I have never been comfortable being a backup. F it. I might just go all in and run for president.
Yeah.
I promise that I will not be a distraction for the Jets this season.
There you go.
That was last season.
There you go.
Yeah, he was a distraction last season when he decided to show up at pregame and throw spirals better than Zach Wilson was in games. That was the fake Aaron Rodgers joining us there via my voicemail on yesterday. Look, when I saw this story yesterday, I did what you guys did. Mouth agape, wide open, like of course this is a Jet story. Like, Giant fans are ticked off that Saquon Barkley, who averaged off 70 yards a game as a New York Giant, is going to play for the Philadelphia Eagles on a great contract for him, right? You've got the Kansas City Chiefs. Wow, they give Patrick Mahomes the $27 million up front, makes it easier to sign guys. Cowboy fans upset. We haven't signed a single free agent this year, and we're holding stock to the fact that the only guy we did re-sign was the long punter. The Baltimore Ravens feel like, yeah, Derrick Henry's the missing piece. The Bengals might be trading T. Higgins for Justin Jefferson. The New York Jets have a much different problem. Is the guy that our entire franchise is connected to, is he our quarterback? Or is he going to be across the country trying to stump for votes to take over the White House?
It's the stupidest thing.
And by the way, what if he wins?
I'm with Willie. This is a real problem.
This is a problem.
This is a real
But it's only what you
problem.
said. He hasn't denied it. Like, he could have easily come out and said, like, this is all nonsense. I'm committed to the Jets. We will win. We're going to play, yada, yada. He goes, we'll see what happens.
2 days ago,
What?
Craig, you were like, the Dolphins and the Bills are handing the Jets the AFC
Yes,
East.
I said that
You
yesterday.
weren't like, maybe the quarterback's going to run for office.
No, I didn't see that one coming. That wasn't on my bingo card. I had a lot of things on that
Why?
bingo card.
Gosh.
Aaron Rodgers running for vice president was not on the bingo
You were
card.
worried about a second receiver 24 hours ago, and now you're worried about being second.
And I think we could go on record now, although it's no one's business. You never should share this thing, but I feel like we're in a good place here on this show. Greg, I get the sense you're not going to vote for him.
Stick to sports.
Hey,
Stick to sports.
You never know.
Yeah.
He wants to hear him out. Can't make these kind of decisions.
You want to hear his stance on
Gotta-
things.
Let me get all the facts.
Get
Let
all
me
the
gather
information. Yeah, make a sound
Maybe on
decision.
Monday we'll get learned.
This is fascinating, though.
We got to take a break.
horrible for the Jets.
Coming up, we have a great scene in a college basketball game yesterday as we now are knee-deep in conference tournaments that start tonight. All the big ones obviously start. And a lot of the action, of course, on Fox and FS1. And we got the latest when it comes to the NFL and more big signings yesterday. Now, there's still some good names out there, for sure. There are talented players available. The question is, when are the Dallas Cowboys going to sign one of them? Today is Wednesday, they tell me. So I believe it's time for something we like to call What the? There you
One
go.
day, Willie.
It's an abbreviated.
I like to just bring it.
It's an abbreviated edition of WTF. Let me start you off with Christian Wilkins, who signs a massive deal with the Vegas Raiders, leaves Miami to become a Raider, and they put out this official photo to welcome him to Las Vegas.
Oh,
I love it.
bands can make him dance.
Yeah, does
love
the
it.
addition of Christian Wilkins? Blah,
He's
blah,
got
blah, blah.
a history. He's got a history with this.
Yeah.
He's a very agile lineman.
Yeah, I figured he dropped the deuce and it looked like a Vegas Raider.
Twerk
But
today.
yeah, I'm not quite sure why he agreed to that or why the Vegas Raiders put that
Big boy
out.
season, baby.
Here's the history of it.
But listen, what happens in Vegas, right? Hey, Vegas Raiders PR team. What? Yeah, and the second one I've got for you here is Aroldis Chapman a pirate now? I got that wrong?
Yes, he is. He's a pirate.
Yeah.
Jesus,
Pirate.
you won't see him at all this year. But in any event, we saw him yesterday, Instagram story with his mom.
Yeah.
Getting ready for
Very handsy.
Video.
Yeah. Can you just go full screen on
What
that? phone?
commentary am I supposed to add to
Not
this?
sure that I want my face next to
let
that
it
video.
play.
Yeah.
In airports across America. That is, yeah. Now she does eventually move his groping hands.
He's like, stop,
And
mijo,
it's
stop.
just not right. There's some kind of fetish that I'd pay $9.95 not to see. But that is Aroldis Chapman, and I'm not, no joke. At first I thought it was his grandma, but no. That's
I mean,
his
it's still
mom.
weird. You grew up in your mama and your grandmama. It's still weird.
Yeah.
It's weird either way, I think.
Yes,
Right?
equally weird
I'm pretty
either
sure
way.
about that.
Greg, don't
I guess
run
that's why
from
the
I'm running.
and the government's trying to shut TikTok down.
Greg, what are your thoughts?
I have none.
No thoughts.
None.
Yeah.
Close family there, Craig.
The problem is that, for me, is that it takes her too many beats to get his hand off her breast.
Yeah. Good point.
Like, as soon as you touch your mom's boob in that manner, get your hand off me.
Right.
She's kind of like, it feels pretty
Yeah,
good.
it's cute when you're under the age of 5. But when you're a
Yes.
grown man and have your own family,
Yeah.
that's cause for concern.
It's a cause for concern. Hey, Aroldis Chapman and his mom.
What?
Yeah, I mean, because she bears some responsibility
No question.
as well. It's a very...
The fact that he knows that that's okay.
He posted that.
And it's comfortable doing that.
Well, she was
Yeah.
well
Posted
taken
it.
care of. So
I'm
there's
being
a-
told they're a very close family.
Right.
Is what I've been told. It does lend itself to the sequel to Meet the Fockers, but
Yeah.
that's another story for another day. Let's go to First and Football.
Please.
Jacoby's still here.
Please, we're going to first in football. Let's talk
guys
about the
are
Steelers.
clamps.
The Steelers are still at it
Clamming up.
after adding Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
They added Patrick Queen.
Yeah.
They added Dante Jackson. What, after all of these upgrades, are realistic expectations for the Pittsburgh Steelers next season?
I don't know. I got around the shot, rub his mom's boobs. Yeah. Still. Look, I think the expectations for the Steelers on their side should be Super Bowl, right? Start off with improve upon a 10-7 season last year, based about having a better quarterback, and that can't be argued. Just how much better is really the question. Russell Wilson versus the trio last year of Trubisky, Pickett, and of course Mason Rudolph. So you have better quarterback play by default. You now are going to have better defensive play, and you're already very good. And while we're all focused on Queen becoming a Steeler, Patrick Queen, and leaving Baltimore, I'm telling you, do not sleep on a guy you've probably never heard of before. Dante Jackson is a star quarterback in this league, meaning you now have, between him and Joey Porter Jr., as good a cornerback combination as you have in the AFC. Kansas City, obviously, right there as well, with their star defensive backs. Look, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that we know quite famously now, is never under 500. A team that did make the playoffs last year with, at best, average quarterback play. Mason Rudolph taking over the helm, late from Kenny Pickett, who got hurt, and then, didn't get the job back. I don't see how we're not talking about the Steelers as a legitimate threat. I can't guarantee they win the division, obviously, because you're talking about Joe Burrow coming back, and it looks like Cincinnati are poised to make another big move in free agency. Deshaun Watson being healthy, coming back, and that great defense in Cleveland, and, of course, what the Baltimore Ravens have. But I think this is going to be a shootout at the OK Corral. Any one of these teams can win the division. Any one of these teams can go to the AFC Championship game. Any one of these teams can make a run to a Super Bowl.
Mr. Carton.
Yeah.
So you guys have been talking about this all morning, about how this team has got Super Bowl expectations.
I think
They're going to beat the Ravens in the NFC North. I just want to remind everyone exactly who Russell Wilson has been as a quarterback.
Yeah.
He is middle of the road, if not in the bottom third of quarterbacks in all of the stats that matter.
Yeah.
So, like, the idea that Russell Wilson is going to lead this team to the Super Bowl is ludicrous. They might be over 500 and keep that streak alive, but there is no chance that they go to the Super Bowl. There's more chance that they miss the playoffs. There's more chance they come in last place in the division than first place.
Craig, who won the Super Bowl this year?
Look at the screen.
Kansas City Chiefs.
Who was the quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs?
Patrick Mahomes.
How good was his numbers? Just as good as Russell Wilson's. Bottom line, 8 interceptions, 26 touchdowns, better passing rating. Russell Wilson hasn't declined. Yes, does he lack mobility? Sure. But there was a big decline in the defense. He didn't have the weapons. He's going to have a defense. He's going to have receivers. He's going to have a running game. And he's going to have a badass head coach. Russell Wilson to the Super Bowl.
Russell Wilson is as good as Patrick Mahomes.
What are you on?
Yes.
So
what are you talking
about?
about?
Trying to say Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes are the same quarterback.
That's what I'm hearing.
I'm talking about the numbers don't lie. Can we put it back up?
Put it back up.
Can we put it back up?
We work in sports.
This is 2023, and this was the numbers from Russell Wilson.
They don't even
and those
want to
are
put it
Patrick
back up.
Wilson.
They're not even going to put it back up on the
Mahomes
screen.
numbers.
Here's the point. I'm going to help my partner climb out here.
Thank you, Craig.
If we're just going to try to cherry pick numbers, I respect it. We all do it. And we're going to cherry pick numbers to make Russell Wilson look like he's an incompetent quarterback. Then we can do the same thing with Patrick Mahomes.
There we go.
Knowing that it's silly because he's the best quarterback in football. Stats don't always tell the story. Because I'd make the argument, if you talk about the Denver Broncos, with a bad offensive line, with zero running game, their best rusher last year averaged barely 3 yards a carry, right? With one legitimate threat at wide receiver in Cortland Sutton. You can't tell me who their tight end is, and I don't think they're very well coached last year. So all of a sudden, Russell Wilson's numbers are a byproduct of the team around him, as opposed to his inability to play at a very high level.
Yeah, the problem that we're not talking about is Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, for that matter, and Deshaun Watson, and even Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
They can actually beat you. They can be the difference maker and be the difference of why their team wins games. I don't know if Russell Wilson even has that card left. And that's what makes me so concerned about this team. I get it. They are going to be a good team. I believe that they'll be a good team, a viable team. I don't think that at all, for me, it's realistic that they will win a Super Bowl. Like, no. That is not on. With Russell Wilson not being able to play off script and still have the athletic ability that he once had when he was in Seattle early in those stages, he is not that guy. He is not that guy.
Let me ask you a quick question.
Go.
We know about all the great quarterbacks in the AFC. And just take Kansas City out for a second, for a split second, okay? There is no dominant team in the AFC.
Fact.
There's a lot of really good teams. They're not dominant.
They're not dominant. What are we talking about? What do you mean? We just talked about the pieces they lost and what they looked like last year by running away from their identity and not running the game.
Saying, like,
so they're not those people.
To me, there's one dominant team in football, and it's San Francisco in the NFC, which is as much a part of their town as is the other teams that don't have the same level of talent. We got the Chiefs. We know they're the team to beat, and I'm never going to sell the Chiefs short because of Patrick Mahomes, obviously, and Andy Reid. But there's no dominant team, and certainly not in that division. I agree. you have as good a chance of coming in last as you do coming in first.
So the problem that I have with the entire division, and as good as that division is, the AFC North, they play the AFC West, which obviously you got to see Patrick Mahomes, and I believe the Chargers will be a lot better.
Yep.
The Raiders are going to be scrappy. They're going to fight. I actually like Gardner Minshew at that position right now. See what they do in the draft. But then you got the NFC East. You know that you're going to have to go up against Dallas, the Philadelphia Eagles. The Giants are going to be a tough out. They're not just going to lay down. So the path of how you get there, they had 3 teams that made the postseason within this division.
Yep.
Like, that's not happening this year.
Yeah, but I'm looking at the Russell Wilson you say that is no longer here. One thing, when he was the Seattle Seahawks quarterback, he had a defense, he had a run game, and he had a good offensive coordinator and a head coach.
Why isn't
he has the same thing in Pittsburgh.
Why isn't he still a Seahawk?
Well, because he doesn't have to be that guy. When you have a dominant run game like the Steelers have with Jalen Warren and Najee Harris, it's not on his shoulders to be a playmaker. He just has to be a field general, which he's still capable of doing. So I'm extremely happy the Steelers got Russell Wilson, and once again, here we go.
I think real quick, you can make the argument right now and not lose the argument. Steelers have had the best offseason in football. That's on the table
100%.
right now. What else you got, Jacoby?
Very quickly to talk about Justin Jefferson, there is a report that just last offseason he turned down a $30 million AAV contract offer from the Vikings. Wow. And now Sam Darnold is scheduled to be the starting quarterback of the Vikings. Have we seen the last of Justin Jefferson in Minnesota?
Yeah. It may not be right now, but it's going to end pretty soon. And I'm of the belief that there's a trade to be had between the Minnesota Vikings and the Cincinnati Bengals for T. Higgins, where JJ would go to Cincinnati, get the 3 Musketeers from LSU back together again, him, Jamar Chase, and, of course, Joe Burrow. He goes to Cincinnati. And the Vikings, I'm making this part up. You could argue it's not enough. It's too much. Fine, I have no issue with that. T. Higgins has demanded a trade out of Cincinnati because they franchise him. Fine, we'll trade you. Take back the franchise tag. We'll trade you to the Minnesota Vikings. See if you like playing in Minnesota. And we'll send you a bunch of picks. If you turn down $30 million per, that means you probably turn down in the neighborhood of 80 or 90 guaranteed over the course of whatever that contract may have been, which means you're telling everybody, we ain't got a quarterback. I'm not staying here because I'm in my prime, coming off an injury, of course. I don't want to play for a journeyman quarterback, and I've got no chance to win. Now, I think Sam Darnold might be better than a lot of people think from a standpoint of a guy that hasn't played in a year and a half, being with San Francisco this past year. But there's a trade to be had. And to me, when I look at what Cincinnati has done this offseason, knowing that they're 5th right now in cap space, meaning they could absorb anybody's contract that they want to, I would not sleep on the reality that T. Higgins gets traded, he gets replaced by Justin Jefferson, and you give Minnesota 2 or 3 picks to make that deal happen so they can start rebuilding a little bit faster than they can right now. And I don't see how anyone could argue that it would make sense for both teams and both players. T. Higgins becomes the number 1, maybe gets a bigger contract from Minnesota since they won't have to pay Justin Jefferson. He becomes Sam Darnold's best friend. You get a couple picks, so you get maybe 2 or 3 more starters out of it, and you reunite the 3 guys from LSU, and then you're talking about an offense in Cincinnati that is very, very ugly in a good way.
Yeah, I think another team to throw out there is the Giants, right? Because they're sitting at the 11th spot. And if they could bump up and kind of swap with the Giants at the 6th pick, you get acquisitions, get rid of Justin Jefferson, and you can build your team up from there. It's a dumpster fire. You don't have a quarterback, but you need one in this
Well, we got much more coming up, including Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs made some news yesterday. If you're a Chiefs fan, it's really good news. And look at the big fella. Shake that. Shake that big fella.
That's going to be in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Steelers on the way.
That's called the tail feather, and it comes with the reality that the New York Jets may have already gone backwards
Look at
this
Brett
year.
watching my moves, trying to show Jacoby. He can move.
Look at this kid right here. You think college basketball doesn't matter to anybody? That's the son of the head coach at the College of Carton.
I love it.
Who's rubbing it in to the opponent as they win the CAA conference. That's the Colonial Athletic Association. And they're going dancing. The what?
What is it?
The Carton Athletic Association. That's the coach's son, like, we're going dancing, Dad. Hey, losers on the other side of the court, why don't you cry about it? I love this kid. That's like my son right there. That makes me so happy. He's all in. He'll probably be a 5 for 9-inch point guard for his dad at some point, and then host a basketball show. So now for the Daily Top 5 at 9, and we start you off as always with number 5. The Dallas Cowboys are officially dead. They're
look
dead.
at Jerry.
And they've got no chance of winning a Super Bowl because Jerry Jones has not delivered on his promise to be all in. The Dallas Cowboys have made one single move in the 2 days that you're allowed to make moves, and their biggest move was re-signing their long snapper.
Oh, boy, that's not it, Jerry.
Yeah.
The bottom line, they've done nothing, and it doesn't look like they're going to do anything. All the top guys that can help them hopefully win a Super Bowl are off the board. So
they are $2 million under the cap, and the only way to get more cap space is to do the CeeDee Lamb deal, restructure Dak Prescott, and there's a couple other guys that are in that spot too. They've lost their starting left tackle. They've not added anybody, and the promise of all in is once again not going to be delivered. I'll ask you this quick question with the Dallas Cowboys. If you're a diehard Cowboy fan, what's the last big name, legitimate free agent the Dallas Cowboys have signed? You have to go all the way back to 2012 since they got a legitimate stud free agent. And what was his name, Troy? Brandon Kerr. All right, number 4. All right, number 4 is very simple. Justin Fields is not an NFL quarterback. The league has told him so. Since nobody wants to acquire him from the Chicago Bears. So why not turn him into what he is? A legitimate corkscrew of talent who can play the slot, who can play out wide, who can be a complimentary running back and kind of fit that Taysom Hill role down in New Orleans. Justin Fields should never play quarterback ever again.
See, this is the problem with sports media. You get people that say stuff like this, and then it generates legs, and then arms, and then people start really running with this idea. Justin Fields is a quarterback. He's an NFL quarterback that just needs to be supported like an NFL quarterback.
Okay, meanwhile, a bunch of average quarterbacks at best have all found a new home to play football in the NFL. Here's a look at some of them. Gardner Minshew got a couple years, $25 million from the Raiders. Sam Darnold's got $10 million coming to him from Minnesota. Jacoby Brissett going back to New England. Marcus effing Mariota, who's the most boring person in America, gets a $6 million contract to go to Washington. Drew Lock's going to start for the New York Giants as Daniel Jones still recuperates from the torn ACL. And even Jameis Winston got a gig. Nobody wants Justin Fields because everybody knows the truth that you guys don't want to admit. Justin Fields is a hell of an athlete. Justin Fields is an NFL caliber talent. He's just not a quarterback, and that's okay.
No, it's not.
Be what you are. Be a game-breaking wide receiver.
Let's be clear. Justin Fields, his what he brings to the table, his talents, they are needed and they are desired. It's just the Bears hold the keys. They are saying, we're not just going to give, we're just not going to take anything. You're going to have to give us what we're looking for and to acquire Justin Fields. That's why he's still a Bear.
Even the Denver Broncos, who are breaking everything apart, would rather have Jimmy Garoppolo than Justin Fields, which brings us to number 3 in your top 5 and 9. Quick little baseball note. New York Yankees are the favorite to go to the World Series in the American League, but spaghetti-o. Garrett Cole had an MRI, didn't like the results, took it to a second doctor, didn't like the results, took it to a third doctor, not sure about the results, and is now seeing a fourth doctor. You know what that means? God. We call that Tommy John surgery. So not good on Garrett Cole. Meanwhile, Aaron Judge, who missed 90% of last year after stubbing his toe in LA against the Dodgers, he had an MRI on his abs, which is weird because I can't find my abs. And he's having MRIs on his abs, meaning he's probably done for the year also. the New York Yankees season is over, and Aaron Boone is not going to make it till July 1st.
I think as Yankees fans, this is a relief that it's happening now.
No. How's it relief?
It's fine. It's spring, so now you know the season's
What are you
over.
talking about?
Get your hopes up to have them dashed later.
Garrett Cole's our ace. He's pitched over 300 innings. He's solid. He's never had Tommy John surgery. It's horrible.
And that brings us to number 2. Top 5 and 9. Only the New York Jets.
Yes.
Only the New York Jets. Only the New York
That's the
Jets
problem. Only
would
the
be
Jets.
faced with the potential problem of losing their franchise quarterback to a run to the White House, as Aaron Rodgers is one of 2 finalists to become the vice presidential running mate with RFK Jr. as he tries to win the nod as the independent candidate. Only the Jets would have to deal with this nonsense. Big Willie Colon.
Yeah, it's all BS, because anytime you haven't denounced the notion of you running for VP, only lets me know as a Jets fan, you don't have any faith in the upcoming season. You rather run for president than support this organization and bring home a Super Bowl, which you said you would do.
I would say this. If I'm Woody Johnson, I've been very good to you, Aaron Rodgers. I've brought in every player you wanted me to. Obviously, I gave you all the money, and you're the face of my franchise and all that jazz. And I've let you make GM decisions across the board. Now I need something from you. Today, you come out and say, well, I appreciate the interest, and I may even have political aspirations later in my life. I have one focus, and that is football and the New York Jets. And if we don't get that from Aaron Rodgers, oh boy.
Yeah.
Boy.
When you've made statements that you don't want teammates basically, or any of us to be a distraction, we need to focus on football. You got to make a statement like that because you are who everybody is going to follow, listen to, and who we're looking at.
And that brings us to number 1. Top 5 and 9. Number 1. I'm sorry, Jacoby. Please don't attack me. I'm having a very good day thus far.
What are we doing?
But it ain't your Buffalo Bills. It may not be my New York Jets. But the Pittsburgh Steelers
all day
are the number 1 threat.
Here we go.
To the Kansas City Chiefs.
Tell them, Craig.
Winning their 3rd straight Super Bowl. It's not the Ravens.
Nope.
It's not the Bengals.
Nope.
It's not the Bills. It's not the Texans.
Nope.
It's the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yes.
They got Queen. They got Dante Jackson. And, of course, they got number 3, Russell Wilson. Spot the line.
You know how we always play back those tapes when you're right about predictions?
Yes.
Can we put a pin in this one?
Yes.
Can we put a pin in this one? The Steelers being the biggest threat to the Chiefs?
Put it on your fridge. The best thing that happened in this whole situation outside of getting Russell Wilson, we got rid of stinky Mitchell Trubisky. You know where he's at? He's the Bills.
So
you guys are going to suck.
Big sign.
You're going to suck forever. You guys are not going anywhere.
When I have a epiphany like that I know I'm right about, like my friend here, it makes us want to dance.
Oh.
So, dance we shall. We got more football coming your way with some head. All right, that was so much that was a
Me and the Rodgers champion cousin.
We got to take a quick break. What big move are the Kansas City Chiefs getting ready to make now that Patrick Mahomes redid his contract?
Good morning. Welcome back to the Carton Show. We have your early morning headlines, and we have huge free agent news from the Dallas Cowboys. That's right. Woo! They have re-signed their long snapper. Trent Sieg, their line snapper, has been re-signed after Jerry said the last 3 months that he's going to be all in on going back to another Super Bowl for this Cowboys organization. They've just re-signed the long snapper. Craig, you've said before that he is asleep at the wheel, and I didn't really believe you. I think you might be right.
Well, I mean, I am right because this was supposed to be the year after another disappointing exit in the playoffs, losing at home to the Green Bay Packers, and a little bit of blood in the water with Mike, the way he's talking, and now Dak Prescott's brother and all that stuff. The notion was, we know we've got a couple holes, but we're a good football team. Won our division, 16 straight wins at home over the course of 2 years. All right, we plug this hole in that hole, and we're going to be right back there. We can compete with the San Francisco 49ers. If I'm a Cowboy fan, I'm at my wit's end.
Yeah.
Not only has it been 28 years since I went to a Super Bowl, but I've got an owner who also loves being the general manager, team president, capologist, and all those other things, and it just does not work. You know, there's a reason teams don't like giving successful head coaches the extra title of general manager. It has never worked. Didn't work with Belichick, didn't work with Mike Holmgren when he was given that opportunity. You coach, you executive, you own. Period, stop. A delineation in duties. And that is the biggest problem in Dallas right now, that the guy who also has the money and has to write the check is the guy making the decisions on how to plug holes and who the talented players are that we want to go after. Right now, the Cowboys are in a very strange spot because they know they've got holes. You've got an owner guaranteeing the fans, I'm all in, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get us back to a Super Bowl. But in the moment, they didn't prepare themselves for free agency because they're only $2 million under the cap. They didn't do all the contract kind of maneuvers that other teams have done, most notably now the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, who redoes his contract so they have more room now to go get more players. The Cowboys haven't even done that. So if you're a Cowboy fan, I have no faith left. Right. I don't believe you anymore because now you've lied to me. It's one thing to go 28 years without making it to a Super Bowl. That sucks. But now to double down on that, you're lying to my face. You're telling me this is the offseason. We're going to be old school Dallas. We're going to get everybody. We're plugging every hole. I'm all in. We're going to win a Super Bowl. But then your actions don't belie your words. And that's a real problem.
Yeah, and for me, this is why what Jacoby you're talking about and jumping on board. That's why when you said it yesterday, I was like, you know what, I agree with that. Because one thing that I see Jerry Jones operating strongly in the lane of is arrogance. And I say that because he arrogantly believes clearly that everybody's going to want to come and play here because we're the Dallas Cowboys, and we won't have to pay them as much as everybody else does because we are the Dallas Cowboys. We provide so much more than just financial compensation. We provide you with all the other amenities that no other organization can afford you. And so with that, you sit back and you allow all these other guys to say, yeah, right, I'm going to get this money. Right. What are you doing? And you do have voids that you can fill. And when you make the statement of saying, I am all in, you better believe that other teams that realize they are all in too, they're going to make moves.
Now, it even gets worse than that because the Eagles' collapse is what gave the Cowboys last year's division.
Correct.
And they earned it. They won enough games, so I'm not taking away what they accomplished. But the Eagles' collapse historically, going from 10-1 to losing 5 out of their last 6. The Eagles have gotten better. We could debate how much better, but I do believe the Eagles have gotten better with the moves that they've made. Washington has even gotten a little bit better. I don't think they're a threat to anybody, but they've gotten a little bit better. And obviously a new head coach there, a new scheme, the whole bit, right? The New York Giants have gotten better. They've got a defensive line that's going to wreak havoc in other teams' backfields. The only team starting the division, forget about the conference, that hasn't gotten better, so by default they've gotten worse, are the Dallas Cowboys, and that lands on the shoulders of one guy, and that's Jerry Jones.
There are two things that happened or didn't happen that really showed me that Jerry Jones is not on top of this. Number one, when we saw that Dak Prescott was going to be $59 million against the cap, you say to yourself, oh, they're going to restructure that. It's a no-brainer.
No-brainer.
Anybody who pays any attention to how football contracts work know that that deal needs to be restructured. And here we are, a month later, and it has not been touched, and we're 2 days into free agency. Number two, the running back position. Tony Pollard says, I will take a discount to stay in Dallas. He was not good last year. Maybe he can bounce back. And then all of these running backs come off the board.
Yep.
And you're not involved in any of them. Apparently, Zach Moss's $4 million was too much for you. Apparently, Derrick Henry's, whatever it is, $9 million guaranteed a year is too much for you. Those are two things that simply don't happen if you're using just common sense running the team.
Craig, you said something earlier that I agree with. You talk about losing faith with the fan base. Conceptually, the Cowboys don't go super hard at free agency. Fine. However, it pivots back to the Steelers. Like Omar Khan was at the Combine saying, hey, we're going to be loyal to Kenny Pickett. We're going to stay true to Mason Rudolph. We want to see the develop. But then they realized, Steelers Nation drives this thing. So what they did, they went out and got Russell Wilson to not only build faith back into the fan base, but also back into the building because you cannot go into Buffalo, lose a game with Mason Rudolph, and think that next year was going to be different different. If you're the Dallas Cowboys right now, you got dog-walked by a young quarterback in Jordan Love, got beat up on defense. The run game with Aaron Jones mopped you up and down the field. We talked about going into that game how it was impossible for the Cowboys to lose, considering they were 16-0 at home. All that fell underneath the bridge. So if you're Jerry Jones, this isn't about, to your Greg's point, which is a great word, arrogance. This is about that you have now lost the pulse of your fan base, and people no longer believe
you're
in
also at some point going to lose the locker room, right? And for all the negativity that we put on, you know, the quarterback and on the head coach in Dallas, Mike McCarthy, and obviously Dak Prescott in reverse order there, you know, how about we start pointing the magnifying glass on the owner? Because the owner's very quick to say it's the coach's fault, right? 100%. He's very quick to say it's the quarterback's fault and throw guys under the bus left and right. But for the first time, it's his fault. Yeah. Yes. And he's got to own that. And here's the other thing. Until they restructure other contracts, re-sign CeeDee Lamb to the big extension, get that Dak Prescott, you know, contract redone, they have no money. Mm-hmm. They're $2 million right now over the cap. You know what you get for $2 million in the NFL? Who got? So until they come out and go, we've restructured CeeDee Lamb's deal. And I remember it's about, 4 or 5 weeks ago when CeeDee Lamb kind of put hints out there that renegotiations have started. Yep. That's a month ago, and you didn't get the deal done. You know full well Micah Parsons is sitting there going, maybe this isn't where I want to sign my long-term extension a year from now, right? If it's another year of not going to the Super Bowl. So I am trying to figure out Jerry Jones. I love him. He's my favorite owner in the history of the NFL, but it's hard to make an argument supporting his leadership right now and his decision-making when it comes to acquiring talent. Because every other team, whether they're right or wrong, that feels like they've got a shot next year of A, making the playoffs, and B, trying to upset San Francisco. Every one of them, and I'm not leaving anybody out, every one of them has done something to improve their roster. The only team in the entire league that hasn't happened to be the Dallas Cowboys.
Look, people may not think this is possible, but they may start losing fans, Dallas fans, to becoming Texans fans, because that's the team in Texas that is making the most noise. That's the team in Texas that seems like they're trying to be all in and they trying to make a push while they're on this young rookie quarterback contract. So for me, the focus is shifting to that team.
Now, to be fair, I want to be fair to Dallas too. It's not all negative. There's one aspect, one little storyline for the Dallas Cowboys that is a positive storyline. And while it feels like it's all negative, and it's Jerry and this and that, I should at least point out the one positive, right? I give them a little bit of love here today. And that is Dak Prescott is not running for vice president
That's a great point.
United States of America.
Cowboys fans, don't forget that.
Yeah, he is focused, I believe, on playing football.
That's a great point.
He just had his first child, right, and all that. Yeah. But he's not running for vice president. Right. He's not on the ticket. He's not running. So at least you've got that if you're a Cowboy fan, which is why sometimes strangers make pretty interesting bedfellows. I feel it. I get what it's like in Dallas because I'm a Jet fan. And we haven't done that much this offseason either. And I took a nap yesterday and woke up to the fact that my quarterback may not be playing football this year. He might be trying to get a seat in the White House with RFK Jr. And I had the vision of watch the Jets get off to a great start with Aaron Rodgers. And then as we go into the AFC divisional playoff game at home in our own building, which we've never had in the history of the franchise, right? All of a sudden, I'm going to get the news that Aaron Rodgers can't play in that playoff game because he's got to be in Washington to accept the nod as the new vice president. And that's real. What are we doing?
Yeah. No distractions here.
Moving on from an incompetent franchise, the Cowboys, to a very competent franchise, the Kansas City Chiefs. Mahomes has restructured his deal, like Dak is supposed to free up $21.6 million in the cap. Now, when you hear that, you think, well, what could they be doing with that money? Take a look at the menu of notable players that are still available in free agency. Craig, when you see this list, who do you think they should target? Who do you think they'll get?
To me, the answer's simple, and it's Calvin Ridley. He's the best available wide receiver, no disrespect to Brown. The other guys out there. Odell Beckham's obviously seen his best days in his rearview mirror. But if we all acknowledge that the biggest question mark for the Kansas City offense last year was wide receivers, and who does he trust well, Calvin Ridley's a legitimate star wide receiver, and I think becomes their best wide receiver, all due respect to the emergence of Rashee Rice. Calvin Ridley's a badass. Yeah, that was a big loss for Jacksonville. In the moment they lost him and decided they didn't want to give up a second-round pick to keep him based on their deal with the Atlanta Falcons going back, a year and a half now. But I would go out there, I would get Calvin Ridley. I wouldn't be shocked if there's an interest in Odell Beckham at the right number, because Odell Beckham is still one of those guys that everybody loves, and we love the notion of Odell Beckham, which is frankly 3-4 years old at this point, and he's not the same guy. But if I'm Patrick Mahomes and you want a three-peat, I'm demanding you go get Calvin Ridley. That's the guy I want.
Well, listen, I think this, at the end of the day, when you talk about one of the holes with the Kansas City Chiefs is the fact they don't have a dominant number one, right? That they came down to check down Charlie, and then the offense went through Isaiah Pacheco. If you seriously about repeating and taking on your third Super Bowl, you're going to have to get back to the old days where it was chuck and duck, and you threw the ball to Tyreek Hill, and you scored a touchdown.
Sure.
This is what Patrick Mahomes wants. He has $22 million in cap space, the Chiefs do, to play with. Hopefully they can maximize it.
Well, you definitely got to add to that offense.
Sure.
Defensively, you look great. You're young. You got a lot of youth. You got a lot of talent on that defense side of the ball. You got to bolster up who you worked at the receiver position. And it's not just about getting a big name, but if you have a guy like Calvin Ridley who's out there and affordable, and then you can still add and supplement him with other guys in the draft. You know Rashee Rice is coming on, and he's emerging. Might be like they have to focus on this offensive side of the ball in supporting Patrick Mahomes and allowing them to truly go after this three-peat.
I just want to make one quick point about Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs before I move on. There's this comparison to him and Tom Brady, right? And which I think is a little early for all that now. But I can see this being an annual thing. They give him this huge contract, and every year, in order to stay competitive, he ends up restructuring it just like Tom Brady did. And he's not taking less. He's just doing team-friendly deal year after year after year. Could you see that happening, Chris?
Well, I mean, the difference is that Tom Brady did take less. Patrick Mahomes was never asked to take less. But there are very good similarities in the fact that both teams are built around the notion of he's going to make everybody better around him. So we don't need to get, Marvin Harrison Jr. in the draft, because he's going to make someone that might be average thus far really, really good, the way that Tom Brady did. So I think it's a very good comparison from what the Chiefs' expectation is when it comes to the draft, when it comes to free agents. As long as 15's our quarterback, we'll find a good wide receiver because he's going to make them good. But again, remember, there were a lot of games this past year, including in the playoffs, where the Kansas City offense got shut out.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, shut out, 0 points, right? So the fact is, if we are going to do something that has never been done before and three-peat, and we know all these teams that are chomping at our ankles have gotten better and are making moves to counter what we might do, you better give that guy another threat, because remember, they were a dink-and-dunk offense. He's the difference maker, but over the last 2 years, since they got rid of Tyreek Hill to the Miami Dolphins, Patrick Mahomes has only thrown 2 touchdown passes where the ball traveled more than 20 yards in the air. It is hard to sustain that type of offense where you need 10, 11, 12 play drives to get the ball into the end zone. Calvin Ridley, you want to tell me Marquise Brown? Fine, all good. They need to acquire a wide receiver.
Moving on to our final headline, that involves a big signing for the Baltimore Ravens. They are bringing in Derrick Henry, signed a 2-year, $16 million deal with $9 million guaranteed. Does this addition of Henry solidify them again as favorites in the AFC?
Absolutely not. They were the best running team in football last year. They might very well be the best running football team this year. Doesn't change a damn thing for me. As long as Todd Monken remembers he's got a badass running attack and not to panic in a big spot, which in my opinion he did in that playoff game, AFC Championship game against the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think if they continue to run the ball and stay true to their offense, maybe not, the outcome is different. So I like Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's a name. Derrick Henry is not a dominant running back the way he was 3-4 years ago in his mid-20s. He's now a 30-year-old running back who has averaged like 300-plus carries a year over, 4 or 5 years in a row now. And they don't use the running back in that manner where they're going to hand the ball off to one guy 25 times, and that's really what his expertise is fourth quarter, wear down the defense, and here comes that out-of-control locomotive. So is it a good addition? Yes. We said yesterday it would make a great addition to the Baltimore Ravens in their quest to go to a Super Bowl. But I have them in the same exact spot I had them before they acquired Derrick Henry, as an absolute playoff team, and then we'll roll the dice and see.
Yeah, and let's keep it a buck. There's nobody afraid of Derrick Henry, especially the Steelers. I got a little clip to remind people out there, and Steeler Nation wants to be sentenced to the rest of America. That's him getting stuffed in a hole in the goal line. So expect this all next season when you got Patrick Queen coming downhill, punching Derrick Henry right in the mouth.
You know what's funny?
Big boy football.
You cherry pick highlights the way
What do you mean?
Jacoby cherry
What do you
picks
mean?
stats.
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about? It's just I didn't make the play. The Steelers made the play.
Yeah.
That's the Steelers made the play on Derrick Henry. And that was 3 years ago when he was younger.
Right. The guy might have 39 touchdowns that year, and you cherry-picked one play.
Every running back has got
He didn't get a touchdown
Guess
right
what?
there.
But
He got
guess what?
stuffed in a
Guess
hole.
what?
Nobody gives a damn about Derrick Henry.
I went back.
Here we go.
I went back and checked that
we
game.
go.
And guess what?
There you go. Look at. Look at the towel will make his dance. Yeah. Look at that. Looks great.
Bye. Have a good day.